To be joined by Tolit Atiya, an expert in conflict and politics in the Great Lakes region, to help us understand better how the meeting between President Paul Kagame and his DRC counterpart, Felix Tshisekedi, could impact the conflict in eastern DRC. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
All right, it's a pleasure to have you. We come and meet together at a tough time for regional politics. For example, my first question would be, what do you think of President Felix Tshisekedi accepting to meet his counterpart in Qatar over the invitation that he had received from regional government heads of government last month when there was the joint summit of ESC as well as SADC?
Yeah, it's a very interesting development. And why? It comes at a time where both the AU, the East African community, and quite announced thinking within Africa that is calling for African solutions to African problems. But on the backdrop of this is the debate we've always had. Where is the place for the element of Africa's security architecture? Is it standing on 4 legs, or it's a 3-leg table? I think, in my view, it's a 3-leg table. There is a profound weakness in the African security infrastructure. Why? 3 things come to mind. One, there are what you call normative tensions between the African Union as an entity, and remember, this is a renewed outfit, you know, from the African organization, and the regional body, the East African Community. So you keep asking yourself, who should take lead over the issue of peace and security? Now, bringing about peace and security is not particularly a cheap affair, and in 2 senses. One is that you need the financing, but also 2 is that you need some strong voices. And I want to start with a strong voice, or what I have been referring to as the big brother syndrome. It is clearly that within the East African community, there doesn't seem to be the big brother, because we know that Tshisekedi reneged on all the calls that we have seen.
Okay.
But when you see the text, because first of all, let me tell you that this meeting has been shrouded in secrecy. I have been in touch with counterparts, even in Kinshasa. This news also broke to them as a surprise.
It was public news to them.
Yes, so the secrecy in it is actually seen in the text, because a joint communique has been released. The thrust of this communique is only talking about we welcome, we endorse, we associate with the processes that have been Angola, Nairobi, and then Dar es Salaam. And we know that all these attempts have been fraught.
Speaking of Dar es Salaam, we still have the ESC and SADC leaders having a meeting come the next few days, probably Sunday or Monday. And it begs the question, what will be the impact of the Doha meeting for these heads of state meeting regarding the DR conflict?
Now, what is really important for the Doha is that this conflict is what we are looking at it as a hybrid cross-border conflict. Because what that means is that you have an internal conflict going on. Then you have this conflict now emerging and seemingly supported by an agent from across the border.
All right.
So there's not very much that is going to come out. But the biggest opportunity is that it probably sets an opportunity for a new agenda.
Well, it begs the question, what is the new agenda? But as we conclude this conversation, Mr. Tolit, I'm also wondering about the big brother syndrome that you have talked about. We have seen President Trump having the big brother syndrome on the Russia-Ukraine war. And
Yes.
now if we get the same and reflect on it for DRC and Rwanda, what does that mean? And how is it going to be impacting on politics, especially in regional politics?
There is definitely what you'd look at as a geopolitical shift in regional politics in two ways. One is that nature does not live in a vacuum. There has been a vacuum, and largely because there are internal challenges. The biggest challenge we are having in this region is that the regional leaders have not had the muscle to address the governance issue. So they cannot speak to each other, in a sense.
All right.
So there is an ego playing. So what was lacking is that we needed a third party, that big brother. And probably, just probably, the emergence of the emir could be the solution.
Okay.
But may
so
not
much.
solve the conflict, but sets an agenda that then everybody can use to rethink what next.
Let's see how the EAC and SADC leaders will be using that meeting to set an agenda or rethink the agenda on ground resolving the conflict in the eastern part of Congo. That brings us to a break here on NTV tonight, reminding you